paid for performing?
Oh, yeah. It was in...
Your favorite country music star singing sweet songs about love and family values on stage, while behind closed doors, their life is falling apart in the most shocking ways possible. Today, we're diving deep into the dark side of country music history, uncovering 20 disturbing rumors about legendary artists that turned out to be completely true. Trust me, some of these stories will leave you absolutely speechless. Country music has always been about telling real stories from the heart. But sometimes, the real stories happening behind the scenes were far more dramatic than anything these stars ever sang about. From mysterious kidnappings to deadly addictions, from broken marriages to tragic endings, these country music legends lived through experiences that would make even the most dramatic soap opera look tame. So grab a cup of coffee and settle in, because we're about to reveal the shocking truth behind some of country music's biggest names. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at these classic country songs the same way again. Let's start with a story that sounds so crazy, most people didn't believe it when it first happened. Tammy Wynette, the queen of country music herself, claimed she was kidnapped right in broad daylight. Now, you might think this sounds like something out of a movie, but sadly, it was all too real. It was October 4th, 1978, and Tammy was just trying to be a good mom. She had gone shopping at a department store in Nashville to buy a birthday present for her 8-year-old daughter. It was supposed to be a normal, happy day. But as she walked back to her car in the parking lot, her life turned into a nightmare. Tammy later told reporters that she had accidentally left her car unlocked. When she got back to her vehicle, she felt someone poke her in the side. A man's voice said one terrifying word, "Drive." All she could see was a brown glove, a hairy arm, and 2 inches of a gun barrel pointed right at her. For the next 2 hours, this masked stranger put Tammy through absolute hell. He strangled her with pantyhose so hard that it left burn marks on her neck. He punched her in the face repeatedly. Then, after what felt like a lifetime of terror, he dumped her in a strange town 80 miles away from Nashville and disappeared into another car. When Tammy stumbled to the nearest house for help, she was barely recognizable. The woman who helped her said Tammy's neck was swollen and red, her cheek was scraped up, and her mouth was hurt from being slapped. But here's the thing that made everyone doubt her story at first. The kidnapper didn't steal anything from her. She had 30 credit cards and $40 in cash, but he didn't take a single thing. The police were completely puzzled. Why would someone kidnap a famous country singer, hurt her so badly, but not rob her or ask for ransom money? It didn't make sense. Some people started whispering that maybe Tammy made the whole thing up as a publicity stunt. Others thought she was lying to cover up an affair. But Tammy stuck to her story, even though she knew people didn't believe her. She told reporters it was the most terrifying experience of her entire life. She said she would wake up at night wondering why she didn't just crash her car into another vehicle in the parking lot to get help. But then she would remember that if she had done that, the man might have shot her dead. Years later, after Tammy passed away, the truth finally came out. Her kidnapping was real. Every horrible detail she had shared was true. The woman who sang "Stand by Your Man" had survived one of the most frightening experiences anyone could imagine, and she had to deal with people not believing her on top of all the trauma. Now let's talk about Tanya Tucker, a woman who was famous for saying she would never, ever get married. Tanya had been unlucky in love for most of her career. She had gone through failed relationship after failed relationship, including a brief engagement to fellow country star Glenn Campbell back in 1981. She had been engaged 2 more times to other men, and each time, things fell apart. But then something changed. Tanya met a singer and songwriter named Craig Dillingham, and suddenly, all her rules about marriage went out the window. People who knew Tanya couldn't believe it when rumors started spreading that she was actually considering walking down the aisle. In interviews, Tanya opened up about Craig in a way she had never talked about any man before. She told reporters, "If it ain't him, I'm done. And if it is him, it's been a long time coming. Craig's always loved me. Always. I mean, he's never not loved me." For a woman who had sworn off marriage completely, these were shocking words. The country music world was buzzing with excitement. Would the woman who had built her reputation on being independent and unmarried finally settle down? Unfortunately, like many of Tanya's relationships, this one also didn't lead to marriage. But for a brief moment, it looked like one of country music's most confirmed bachelorettes might actually become a bride. One of the most heartbreaking stories involves Naomi Judd, half of the famous mother-daughter duo the Judds. Naomi's life was filled with more pain and trauma than most people could handle. She had been taken advantage of when she was young, had a child out of wedlock, and later had to deal with her husband's cheating. All of this pain built up inside Naomi over the years, affecting her mental health in serious ways. Sadly, she couldn't bear the weight of all this trauma anymore, and she made the tragic decision to end her own life. After Naomi died, her daughter Ashley Judd appeared on Good Morning America to share the heartbreaking details. Through her tears, Ashley explained that her mother had used a firearm to take her own life. She said they were sharing this painful information because they knew if they didn't, someone else would, and they wanted their family's story to be told with respect. Ashley described her mother's final day, explaining how she had visited her mom and stepdad like she did every day when she was home in Tennessee. Her mom had asked her to stay, and Ashley had said of course she would. She went upstairs to tell her mom that a good friend had come to visit, and that's when she found her. The other half of the Judds, Winona, also spoke about her mother's death. She believed that generational trauma and family problems that were never properly dealt with played a major role in her mother's decision. It was a tragic end to a woman who had brought so much joy to millions of fans through her music. Barbara Mandrell was another country star who disappeared from the spotlight, and people had all kinds of theories about why. Some thought she was sick. Others wondered if she was having personal problems. The truth was actually much simpler, but also quite sad. Barbara loved performing more than almost anything in the world. She had her own weekly television show that was hugely popular. But the demanding schedule was destroying her voice. She was working 14 to 16 hours a day, some days even more. Her throat was under such severe strain that doctors warned her she might lose her singing voice completely if she didn't slow down. For a singer, losing your voice is like losing your identity. Barbara had to make one of the hardest decisions of her career: give up her beloved television show or risk never being able to sing again. She chose to protect her voice, even though it meant saying goodbye to something she loved. When Barbara announced she was leaving her show, she was heartbroken. She told reporters that it was nobody's fault but her own because she had been involved in every single detail of the production. She missed it terribly and said she got a lump in her throat every Saturday night when the show would normally air. Here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Reba McEntire was supposed to be in the movie Titanic. Yes, that Titanic, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet that became one of the biggest movies of all time. But due to scheduling conflicts with her tour, Reba had to turn down the role, which eventually went to Kathy Bates instead. Reba later explained in interviews that everything was all set up for her to be in the movie, but then director James Cameron had to change the filming schedule. Reba realized she couldn't do both the movie and her already planned tour. Since so many people depended on her tour for their jobs and income, she made the difficult decision to let the movie opportunity go. Can you imagine how different movie history might have been if Reba had been sailing on that doomed ship instead of Kathy Bates? It just goes to show how one small scheduling conflict can change everything. Linda Ronstadt was one of the most successful female artists of her time, but she never got married. This led to all kinds of speculation and even a famous quote: "There are two kinds of men in this world, those with a crush on Linda Ronstadt and those who never heard of her." Even though Linda never walked down the aisle, she had several serious relationships with high-profile men. She dated producer John Boylan, who helped launch her career and worked on several of her albums. Their relationship was both personal and professional, but Linda later said it was very unhealthy and shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. She also had a relationship with J.D. Souther, a songwriter who wrote many of her songs and even helped her form the Eagles as her backing band. Their relationship started when he asked her to cook him dinner, and she made him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He fell in love with her immediately and asked her to move in with him the very next day. Later, Linda dated Aaron Neville, and their relationship became so serious that Entertainment Weekly called them the first couple of pop music. But like all her other relationships, this one also didn't lead to marriage. Linda seemed to be someone who could find love, but couldn't quite make it last forever. The relationship between Crystal Gayle and her famous sister Loretta Lynn was something special. Despite both being major country music stars, they managed to maintain a close sibling relationship that fame never ruined. Crystal always looked up to Loretta and often asked for her advice. She once told reporters about a photo shoot where she brought two identical blouses in different colors but couldn't decide which one to wear. Loretta told her which one to choose, and Crystal said, That's what a big sister can do. Loretta was also the one who got Crystal her first recording contract back in 1970. She gave Crystal some of the best advice she ever received. Don't sing anything that I would because we're only going to be compared. Crystal said her sister was absolutely right. When Loretta passed away, Crystal was devastated. It took her a very long time to heal from losing not just her sister, but also her mentor and best friend. Their relationship proved that even in the competitive world of country music, family bonds could remain strong. K.T. Oslin was a groundbreaking country artist who paved the way for many female singers who came after her. When she passed away at age 78, the entire country music community mourned her loss. Sarah Traherne, the CEO of the Country Music Association, said that K.T. had one of the most soulful voices in country music and was a strong influence for women, especially with her hit song, 80s Ladies. She described K.T. as someone who was always gracious to crews and up-and-coming talent. Other artists also shared their memories of K.T. Singer and songwriter Chaylee Wright tweeted that K.T. didn't ask anyone for permission to enter the country music world. She just walked in with her brilliant songs, unmatched intelligence, and perfectly foul mouth, and changed everything. K.T.'s death was a huge loss for country music because she represented a generation of strong, independent women who weren't afraid to speak their minds through their music. Lorie Morgan's personal life was always in the spotlight, especially because she had been married 6 times. When her 6th husband, Randy White, passed away, Lorie was absolutely devastated. She had been with Randy for 17 years, and his death nearly broke her. After Randy died, Lorie wrote a heartfelt message alongside a picture of them at the Grand Ole Opry. She called him her partner, champion, and rock, saying that their big, wonderful family was devastated by the loss of such a kind and incredible man. Randy's stepson Jesse Keith Whitley also shared touching memories of his stepfather. He talked about how Randy had been like a real father to him since he was in his early 20s, and how Randy had been an amazing grandfather to his children. Jesse remembered how Randy would pick him up late at night when it wasn't safe for him to drive, and he was never mad about it, not even once. The loss of Randy was particularly hard for Lorie because many people speculated that her inability to maintain long marriages might mean she would never find lasting love. With Randy's death, those painful rumors seemed to come true in the worst possible way. Back in 1952, Kitty Wells released a song that almost got banned from the music industry. The song was called "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels," and it became her biggest hit, but it also caused a huge controversy. The song was considered very bold for its time because it directly criticized men who cheated on their wives. This was during an era when women in country music were expected to be sweet and submissive. Kitty's song flipped that expectation on its head and called out men for their bad behavior. Many people thought the song was too brash and inappropriate. They wanted it banned from radio stations. But despite all the criticism, the song became a massive hit and was later covered by famous artists like Dolly Parton and Patsy Cline. Kitty had started a musical revolution that would inspire countless female country singers to speak their minds through their music. Willie Nelson's reputation as a ladies' man was well known in country music circles, but the way his second wife found out about his cheating was particularly cruel. Shirley Collie discovered Willie's affair in the worst possible way, through a hospital bill. One day, Shirley found a bill in their house for the birth of a baby girl to someone named Mrs. Connie Nelson. Shirley had no idea who Connie Nelson was, and she certainly didn't know Willie had gotten another woman pregnant. Willie later admitted that Connie had been his girlfriend for several years before she became pregnant. Even Willie's daughter Lana said that Shirley had no idea about Connie or the baby until she saw that hospital bill. It was a shocking and heartless way to find out that your husband has been living a double life. After this discovery, Shirley was devastated and left Willie immediately. She couldn't handle his infidelity and dishonesty. But sadly, this didn't teach Willie any lessons about faithfulness, and he continued to have affairs throughout his life. Johnny Cash, the man in black himself, had his own share of legal troubles, particularly related to his addiction problems. In one famous incident, Johnny was caught smuggling amphetamines across the Mexican border in his guitar case. U.S. Customs agents found 1,000 pills on him, and he was promptly arrested. When Johnny appeared in court, he admitted his mistake and called it appalling misconduct on his part. The judge sentenced him to a $1,000 fine and a 30-day suspended sentence. Fortunately for Johnny, fellow country musicians Gene Autry and Tex Ritter wrote letters to the judge vouching for his character, which helped convince the judge to suspend the sentence. But Johnny's legal troubles didn't end there. On another occasion, after a performance at Mississippi State University, Johnny was arrested for drunkenly picking flowers from someone's garden. He later joked about the incident, saying he couldn't believe he spent a night in jail and paid $36 just for picking a dandelion and a daisy. He said he'd like to get back at the officer in Starkville, Mississippi, who still had his $36. The love story between Johnny Cash and June Carter is legendary, but it came at a terrible cost to Johnny's first wife, Vivian. Johnny had been married to Vivian since 1954, and they had 4 children together. But when June came into the picture, everything changed. June wasn't exactly innocent in this situation either. She had been married twice before meeting Johnny. Her first marriage was to Carl Smith from 1952 to 1956, and they had 1 child together. Her second marriage was to Edwin Lee Nix from 1957 to 1966, and they also had 1 child together. When June and Johnny began their affair, it destroyed Johnny's marriage to Vivian. Vivian later said bitterly that she should have been as relentless at saving her marriage as June was at destroying it. She also said she would have given anything to hear Johnny say he was sorry for what he put her through. After their divorce, Vivian married Dick Diston in 1968 and remained married to him until she passed away in 2005. But the pain of Johnny's betrayal never fully healed. Patsy Cline's story is one of the most tragic in country music history. Not only was her life cut short in a plane crash, but she also struggled with feeling rejected by her own hometown during her career. Despite her incredible talent and beautiful voice, Patsy felt like her community didn't appreciate her music while she was alive. This rejection was deeply painful for someone who just wanted to share her gift with the world. On March 5, 1963, Patsy's life ended tragically in a plane crash in Camden, Tennessee. She was only 30 years old. The irony is that after her death, her songs became massive hits and she became more famous than she had ever been while alive. One of her posthumous hits was Sweet Dreams, which introduced Patsy's music to a whole new generation of fans. She was even inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in the same year she died, an honor that sadly came too late for her to enjoy. Jessica Andrews became famous at a very young age, but her early success came with an unexpected and frightening problem: a stalker who began impersonating her. This person was so dedicated to ruining Jessica's career that she actually threatened Jessica if she continued to release new music. The situation became so serious that Jessica stopped putting out new music altogether. She was afraid of what this unstable person might do if she continued her career. During an interview on The Bobby Bones Show, Jessica opened up about this terrifying experience. But then something incredible happened. While Jessica was on the show talking about her stalker, the stalker herself called in and left a voicemail with her side of the story. She claimed she never actually impersonated Jessica by booking shows or releasing music, and said she would stop threatening Jessica if Jessica would just go back to making music. Bobby Bones was so shocked by this call that he offered to pay the stalker $500 to leave Jessica alone completely. It was a bizarre and frightening situation that showed how fame can attract dangerous attention from unstable people. Loretta Lynn turned her personal pain into one of her biggest hits with the song Don't Come Home A Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind. Loretta later confirmed that she wrote this song during a time when her husband was cheating on her. Instead of falling apart, Loretta channeled her anger and hurt into her music. She wrote an upbeat tune that warned other women to stay away from men like her husband. The song spent a week at the top of the Billboard Hot Country chart and strengthened Loretta's reputation as a country music rebel who wrote songs about real life. Loretta explained that most songwriters wrote about falling in love, breaking up, and being alone, but she wrote from a female perspective that was completely new at the time. She said she just wrote about what she knew, and what she knew usually involved something that somebody had done to her. This approach made Loretta's music incredibly relatable to women who were dealing with similar problems in their own lives. She gave voice to experiences that many women had but were afraid to talk about openly. In recent years, Garth Brooks, one of country music's biggest stars, found himself facing serious legal trouble. A woman who had worked as his hairstylist and makeup artist filed a lawsuit against him, claiming that Garth had sexually assaulted and beaten her during a work trip in 2019. At first, many people didn't believe the accusations. Garth Brooks had built his reputation as a family man and a good guy. How could someone like that be capable of such terrible things? Garth denied the allegations, but as the legal process continued, evidence began to support the woman's claims. This case shocked the country music world because it involved someone who had been seen as one of the good guys in the industry. It showed that even the most beloved celebrities can have dark secrets hidden behind their public image. Hank Williams Sr., one of the founding fathers of country music, was known for his incredible talent but also for his rebellious attitude. Hank insisted on doing things his own way, which often got him into trouble. His behavior became so problematic that he was eventually banned from the Grand Ole Opry, country music's most prestigious venue. This wasn't just a temporary suspension. Hank lost his membership completely and was left with nothing. Hank's problems stemmed from his chaotic lifestyle, which included heavy drinking and drug use. His inability to control his behavior made him one of the most troubled figures in early country music, despite his incredible musical talent. The ban from the Grand Ole Opry was devastating for Hank because it represented the ultimate rejection from the country music establishment. For someone who had helped create the genre, being cast out was both professionally and personally crushing. Merle Haggard had a rough start in life that included time in juvenile detention centers and multiple run-ins with the law. His mother eventually dropped him off at a juvenile detention center because she couldn't handle his behavior anymore. As early as 11 years old, Merle was constantly getting into trouble. The word incorrigible was used to describe him, meaning he was impossible to correct or control. In 2010, during an interview with NPR, Merle used that exact same word to describe himself. He admitted that he was probably the most incorrigible child anyone could ever meet, and that he was already on his way to prison before he even realized what was happening to his life. He called himself a screw-up who seemed destined for a life of crime and punishment. Fortunately, Merle was able to turn his life around through music, but his early years were filled with the kind of trouble that could have easily led to a very different ending. Finally, we come to Waylon Jennings, whose struggle with substance addiction lasted an incredible 27 years. This wasn't just a brief period of experimentation, it was nearly 3 decades of his life consumed by drugs. What makes Waylon's story different is how he finally overcame his addiction. He realized that drugs were threatening to destroy his love for music, which was the most important thing in his life. The fear of losing his passion for music forever gave him the strength to get clean. After getting sober, Waylon turned his experience with addiction into powerful music that helped other people who were struggling with similar problems. His honesty about his addiction helped break down the stigma surrounding substance abuse and showed that recovery was possible. Waylon's 27-year battle with drugs shows just how powerful addiction can be, but his eventual recovery proves that it's never too late to turn your life around. These 20 stories show us that our favorite country music stars were real people dealing with real problems, just like the rest of us. Their struggles with love, addiction, betrayal, and tragedy weren't just material for their songs. They were the painful realities of their daily lives. What makes these stories even more powerful is that many of these artists channeled their pain into music that touched millions of people around the world. Their willingness to be vulnerable and honest in their songs helped other people feel less alone in their own struggles. The next time you listen to a classic country song, remember that behind those beautiful melodies and heartfelt lyrics was often a real person who had lived through experiences that would break most of us. Their ability to turn pain into art is what made them true legends. Country music has always been about telling the truth, even when the truth is ugly or painful. These stories remind us that the greatest country songs come from the deepest places in the human heart, where joy and sorrow live side by side. If this video opened your eyes to the real stories behind country music's biggest stars, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for more shocking celebrity stories and hidden truths from the entertainment world. And let us know in the comments which of these stories surprised you the most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.